Hallow Ridge had always been a quiet town, the kind of place where people left their doors unlocked and children played on the streets until dusk. Its charm lay in its simplicity: tree-lined streets, familiar faces, and a sense of security that bordered on complacency. But that Friday night, the peace shattered in a way no one could have imagined. At precisely 11:47 p.m., the first scream pierced the stillness. It was raw, piercing, and full of sheer panic, a sound that froze the heart. Then another scream followed, from a different street, and another. Within minutes, it seemed as though the entire town was screaming at once. Windows rattled, car alarms went off, dogs barked and howled, and every street lamp flickered as if shivering in fear. Neighbors stumbled out of their homes in confusion and terror. Mr. Callahan, the retired school principal, ran barefoot into the street, shouting for his wife, only to find the air empty save for the echoes of distant screams. The town square, usually lively with the occasional late-night wanderer or jogger, was eerily vacant. Doors stood ajar, and some windows were shattered, but no one was in sight. By 11:55 p.m., the local police station began receiving frantic 911 calls. Officers scrambled to respond, sirens slicing through the night. Yet when they reached the neighborhoods, they found no bodies, no perpetrators, no explanation, only silence. The screams had ceased, leaving a void that was somehow louder than the noise itself. Detective Elena Pierce arrived at Hallow Ridge just after midnight. She had a reputation for calm under pressure, an eye for details others often overlooked, and a sixth sense for when a situation was far more dangerous than it appeared. As she stepped out of her car onto the deserted street, a chill ran down her spine. The town she had known for years felt alien, twisted, and haunted. Her first stop was the Callahan residence. The front door hung open, swinging slowly with the breeze. Inside, furniture lay overturned, books scattered across the floor, and faint streaks of red marked the walls. Yet there was no body, no sign of Mr. Callahan or his wife. Elena noted every detail, her eyes narrowing as she observed the patterns of disturbance. Whoever or whatever had caused this chaos had moved with speed, precision, and an almost methodical cruelty. She stepped outside again, scanning the surrounding houses. Across the street, the Thompsons' home bore similar signs of turmoil: broken glass, displaced furniture, and a faint odor of smoke. But the family was gone. The street, illuminated by flickering lamps, appeared frozen in time, as though the entire town had been evacuated in a rush, but with no explanation. Elena's partner Malik joined her. "I've never seen anything like this," he muttered, his voice low, betraying unease. "It's like the town screamed itself empty." "That's exactly what it feels like," Elena replied. "Something happened here that isn't just violent, it's almost ritualistic." The first hours of investigation yielded more questions than answers. Residents who had ventured outside reported hearing multiple voices screaming in terror, but no one could provide a description of the attackers. Some claimed the screams came from within their own homes. Others insisted they came from all around the town simultaneously. Every account contradicted the next, creating a fog of confusion that only deepened the sense of dread. By 2 a.m., Elena organized a systematic survey of the area. Officers canvassed neighborhoods, documenting every broken window, every overturned chair, every trace of blood or disturbance. They found scattered belongings: a child's stuffed animal in the middle of Main Street, a pair of slippers abandoned on a front lawn, a wallet left open as if the owner had vanished mid-action. It was as though the residents had been plucked from their lives in an instant, leaving behind fragments of their ordinary existence. In the midst of this chaos, a faint sound drew Elena's attention. A low, almost imperceptible hum vibrated through the air, barely audible over the police radios and murmuring officers. It was not natural, she realized, something mechanical or perhaps deliberate. She followed the sound to a narrow alleyway behind a local bakery. There, on the brick wall, were markings she had never seen before, strange symbols drawn in a substance that glistened in the streetlight. Blood? Paint? Elena couldn't tell at first, but the design was unmistakably intentional, a pattern, repeated, deliberate, and disturbing. "This isn't random," she said to Malik. "Someone planned this, someone orchestrated it, and whatever it wasn't just about scaring people." As dawn approached, the town remained eerily silent. News crews began to arrive, capturing footage of abandoned homes and empty streets. Helicopters hovered overhead, but even their bright searchlights revealed nothing. By sunrise, the town of Hallow Ridge had become a place frozen in fear, a ghost town in appearance, but filled with the unshakable memory of the night's terror. Elena returned to the station to regroup. Maps were spread across the tables, notes scattered, and officers huddled over radios and laptops. Each report, each account of screaming voices added a layer of mystery. No fingerprints, no surveillance footage, no eyewitnesses, only the remnants of a nightmare. Then, just as she was about to leave the station, a young woman arrived, trembling and wide-eyed. She introduced herself as Lydia Barrett, a resident of Hallow Ridge, who had locked herself in her basement during the screams. I saw them," she stammered. "I don't know who they were, but they weren't normal. They moved so fast, and then they were gone, and then everything was quiet." Elena noted the girl's fear, but also her clarity. Lydia's account confirmed what Elena had begun to suspect. This was not a random act of violence. Something deliberate, something terrifying had swept through the town, and it might not be over. As part one closes, Elena stands on the steps of the station, looking out over the empty streets of Hallow Ridge. The sun rises, casting a pale light over the shattered town. And in the distance, a faint whisper seems to ride the morning wind, a reminder that the night of screams may have passed, but the horror has only begun. The morning sun did little to brighten Hallow Ridge. Its streets remained eerily empty, the quiet almost suffocating. Detective Elena Pierce walked cautiously down Main Street, her eyes scanning the shattered windows and scattered debris. Officer Malik followed closely, his hand never straying far from his holstered gun. The scene from the previous night lingered in Elena's mind like a persistent echo, a town gripped by terror, yet strangely untouched by physical destruction. Inside the police station, a flurry of activity unfolded. Officers cataloged items left behind, broken furniture, torn clothing, and personal effects strewn across lawns. Forensics worked methodically, photographing blood spatters, documenting symbols on walls, and collecting anything that might explain the unexplainable. But every lead seemed to deepen the mystery rather than solve it. Elena focused on the symbols first, convinced they held the key. Arcane, angular shapes, repeated on multiple walls, sometimes drawn with what appeared to be blood. She knelt to examine one closely, noting subtle variations. "It's a code," she said aloud, "or some form of communication, but it's not just random, it's deliberate, precise. Someone wanted to leave a message." Malik frowned. "Or to terrify anyone who sees it, which they've already done." The first breakthrough came in the form of technology. Mason Kane, a local investigative journalist known for digging up hidden truths, arrived at the station. He had spent the night monitoring social media and local forums where panicked townspeople shared fragmented accounts of the screams. Mason approached Elena with a tablet in hand. "Detective, you need to see this," he said. On the screen were multiple short recordings captured on smartphones, each containing a distorted, low hum underneath the screams, a strange vibration that seemed almost ritualistic in nature. Elena watched in disbelief. "This wasn't just a panic attack or mass hysteria," she said. "These sounds, someone orchestrated them, and judging by the patterns, they didn't just scare people, they were controlling the environment." Mason nodded. "I cross-referenced these nights with old reports. Hallow Ridge has had disappearances over the past decade, people vanishing without a trace. And you know what's strange? They all happened on nights when the moon was unusually bright or the weather was anomalous, almost ritualistic." Elena's stomach tightened. "So this isn't the first time. It's been happening for years, and the town just hasn't realized the connection." They decided to follow up on one particularly chilling lead, a survivor who had hidden in the woods near the eastern edge of town. His name was Tommy Granger, a young man of 22 who had narrowly escaped the night of terror. When Elena and Mason found him, he was shaking violently, eyes darting at every shadow. I didn't see their faces," he whispered. "They moved like shadows, but faster than anyone should move. They didn't speak, just screamed through us." His words made Elena's skin crawl. She gently pressed him for details about the symbols, the hum, anything that might help them understand the patterns. Mason drew a shaky diagram in the dirt, repeating the arcane shapes he had seen. "It's a map," he said, leaning in, "not of streets, but of houses. Look, the symbols correspond to every site where residents disappeared or vanished during the screams. It's like a ritual pattern across the town." Elena's mind raced. If this pattern repeated over decades, the town itself was the target, not individual people. Whoever orchestrated the night of screams understood the psychology of fear and the geography of Hallow Ridge intimately. The day turned into evening as Elena and Mason explored further. They visited the abandoned mansion at the edge of town, a place the locals whispered about for decades. It had once belonged to the Donovan family, long gone, and rumors of occult practices had clung to it like ivy. Elena surveyed the property, broken windows, overgrown vines, and the faint metallic scent of rusted metal. Here, perhaps, lay answers to the night's horrors. Inside, the mansion was a labyrinth of dust and decay. Old furniture lay in ruin, cobwebs draped across chandeliers, and the floorboards groaned under their weight. Elena's flashlight beam caught something on the wall, a series of symbols identical to those scattered across town, drawn in what appeared to be dried blood. The realization struck her. The mansion had been the epicenter, the source of the ritual that had swept through Hallow Ridge. Mason's eyes widened. If this is the center, then whoever is behind this isn't done. They could strike again, tonight maybe. Elena nodded grimly. And they'll follow the pattern. That's why the screams felt orchestrated. It wasn't random fear, it was calculated terror. Hours passed as they searched for clues. Hidden rooms revealed journals detailing the Donovan family's obsession with collecting the town's fear to achieve some unknown goal. Drawings of strange symbols lined the pages, alongside instructions for timing rituals according to lunar cycles and atmospheric conditions. The entries were meticulous, obsessive, and deeply disturbing. Suddenly, Mason pointed to the floor. A faint outline, almost invisible beneath layers of dust, indicated a trap door. Elena carefully lifted it, revealing a dark staircase descending into a musty cellar. The air was cold, heavy with the scent of mold and decay. Elena shone her flashlight downward and noticed faint markings on the walls, continuing the arcane symbols from above. "This is where it happens," she said quietly. "This is where the town's terror is concentrated." From the shadows of the cellar, a faint whisper seemed to brush against Elena's ears. She froze. Moloch's voice crackled over the radio. "Detective, do you read me? What's going on?" Elena whispered into her radio. "I think we just found the heart of it. Prepare for anything. This isn't just a crime scene. It's a setup for something far more sinister." As night fell, the team realized that the true danger was still present, lingering like a predator waiting to strike. The town's silence was deceptive. It was not peace, but a breath held in fear. And for Elena, the realization was chilling. The night of screams might have been just the beginning. The first real sense of dread settled over her. If they didn't act fast, Hallow Ridge might not survive another night of orchestrated terror. The sun rose over Hallow Ridge in muted, fragile light. The town appeared calm, too calm. Streets that had once been lined with chaos now looked deceptively peaceful, as if the horrors of the previous night were nothing more than a half-remembered nightmare. But Detective Elena Pierce knew better. The terror had been interrupted, yes, but its memory lingered, a shadow over every home and every street. Elena and Officer Malik stood at the edge of the mansion grounds, surveying the aftermath. Mason Kane, the journalist, snapped photos for documentation, his hands still trembling from the confrontation with Elias Wren. The mansion, though dark and foreboding, now seemed inert, the oppressive aura lifted, yet the symbols, scrawled on walls and floors throughout the underground chamber, haunted Elena's mind. They had been destroyed, but the ritual's imprint on the town's psyche could not be so easily erased. Mason spoke first, voice low. "You think it's really over?" Elena didn't answer immediately. Her eyes traced the horizon, noting the way the morning sun illuminated the broken windows and scattered debris. "For now," she said finally. "But fear doesn't disappear so easily. Elias Wren may be contained, but the echoes of what he did, they're still here. And some part of him, somewhere, is still thinking, still planning." The first step was to return the town to some semblance of normalcy. Residents cautiously emerged from their homes, blinking against the morning light, still shaken. Families reunited with whispered cries of relief. The trauma was evident. Some would not speak for hours. Others wandered the streets silently, eyes wide with lingering fear. Elena moved among them, reassuring and documenting. She recognized that healing would be slow, and that the scars left by fear were often deeper than any physical wound. Meanwhile, Mason worked quickly, gathering eyewitness accounts and survivor testimonies. He interviewed Lydia Barrett and Tommy Granger, carefully chronicling the night's events. His notes formed the foundation for a story that would shock the nation. Hallow Ridge, a quiet town, had been the stage for a meticulously orchestrated psychological nightmare, a ritual designed to harvest fear itself. Back at the mansion, forensic teams carefully examined every corner, ensuring no evidence was overlooked. They retrieved journals, ritual implements, and the remnants of the arcane symbols. Some items were sent to laboratories for analysis, strange chemicals, residues, and traces of biological matter that defied immediate identification. It was clear that Elias Wren had taken great care in perfecting his methods, blending ancient ritual with modern precision. Elena took a moment to sit on the steps of the mansion, staring at the rising sun. Memories of the underground chamber, the oppressive air, and Elias's almost superhuman speed lingered like a weight on her chest. She thought of every scream, every terrified voice, and of how close they had come to a catastrophe that might have left the town permanently broken. Malik approached, breaking her thoughts. "What do you think motivated him? Was it just obsession or something more?" Elena shook her head slowly. "It's more than obsession. It's control, power. Some people see the world as something to dominate, to manipulate. And fear is the ultimate tool. Elias Wren understood that, and he weaponized it against an entire town." Hours passed, and slowly the town began to breathe again. Stores reopened, neighbors checked in on one another, and children emerged from their hiding places to explore the streets under watchful eyes. Elena walked through the town, observing the subtle ways in which trauma lingered, the way an empty street could send a shiver down a parent's spine, the way a sudden noise could cause someone to jump. Hallow Ridge had survived, but it would never be the same. By evening, Mason had published his story, carefully exposing Elias Wren's crimes and the events of the night. Headlines splashed across news outlets. Night everyone screamed, Hallow Ridge's ordeal revealed. The story captured the nation's attention, bringing support, resources, and psychological help to the shaken town. Yet even as people read the article, a subtle sense of unease settled over the town. The knowledge that terror had been so deliberate, so close, left a lingering question. Could it happen again? Elena returned to the police station, reviewing reports and ensuring that evidence was cataloged and preserved. The psychological impact on the town weighed heavily on her mind. She instructed officers to provide regular check-ins with residents, particularly survivors like Lydia and Tommy, recognizing that the trauma inflicted by the night of screams was as dangerous as any physical attack. Later that evening, she walked the streets alone. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of broken branches and dust. The mansion loomed in the distance, dark against the twilight sky. And then, almost imperceptibly, she thought she heard it, a faint whisper on the wind, a sound she could not identify. She froze, heart racing, but the street remained empty. Elena shook her head. "It's nothing," she muttered aloud. Yet the memory of Elias Wren, the ritual, and the screams made her uneasy. Some part of her knew that the darkness they had disrupted was only one layer of a much deeper obsession, and that Hallow Ridge's nightmares might not be fully over. Back at the station, she filed her final report on the events, the chaos, the investigation, the confrontation with Elias Wren, and the resolution of the ritual. She included detailed recommendations for preventative measures, psychological support for the town, and ongoing surveillance. But even as she typed the last words, she could not ignore the gnawing sense that fear, once unleashed, never fully disappeared. That night, as the town settled into uneasy sleep, Elena gazed at the horizon one last time. The streets were quiet, the winds carried only the scent of early frost, and the mansion stood silent. But in the shadows, something seemed to linger, a faint trace of movement, a ripple in the air. The town of Hallow Ridge had survived the night of screams. They had faced terror orchestrated with precision and malice, and for now, the nightmare had ended. But Detective Pierce understood the truth that no one else could see. Fear, once collected, never truly dissipates. And somewhere, somehow, a part of Elias's obsession, his desire to control and manipulate terror, remained unbroken. The night had ended, but the echoes of terror would live on in memory, in whispers, in the silence that followed the screams. And as Elena walked back to the police station, she could not shake the feeling that one day the screams might return. Hallow Ridge would remember, the world would remember, and Detective Pierce would be ready. The mansion loomed in the night like a sentinel of terror, its silhouette casting long, jagged shadows across the overgrown grounds. Detective Elena Pierce, Mason Kane, and Officer Malik had spent the day gathering as much information as possible, piecing together the chilling puzzle that had turned Hallow Ridge into a town gripped by fear. But the mansion, dark, silent, and seemingly abandoned, was different. It was alive with secrets, and Elena felt that entering its depths meant confronting the evil at the center of it all. They descended into the cellar cautiously, flashlights slicing through the oppressive darkness. The air was thick, almost tangible, with the scent of decay and something else, something faintly metallic and bitter. Elena's gut told her this place had been prepared for years. The walls were lined with symbols identical to those found throughout Hallow Ridge, and in the corner of the room, small glass containers held remnants of substances that defied immediate identification. Dust and cobwebs covered the floor, but certain spots were disturbingly clean, suggesting recent activity. This is the epicenter, Elena whispered. Everything we've seen, the screams, the disappearances, the patterns, it all leads here. Whoever did this orchestrated it from this very spot. Mason knelt beside a series of journals stacked in a wooden crate. He flipped through them, his face paling as he read aloud passages that described obsessive experiments in fear, human behavior, and rituals designed to amplify terror across an entire town. "Listen to this," he said. "Fear is a currency collected in waves. When orchestrated correctly, it becomes power." Whoever wrote this believed the town itself could be harvested for its fear. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "This isn't just murder or assault," she said grimly. "This is psychological warfare, ritualized over decades. And the screams, they were designed to manipulate the mind, to terrify every resident simultaneously." Malik's flashlight swept across the room, catching the glint of something half buried under debris, a trap door leading to a hidden tunnel. Elena knelt and tested the latch carefully. It opened silently, revealing stairs that spiraled downward into near-total darkness. "This is it," she said. "Whatever is controlling the terror, it's down there." They descended, flashlights barely penetrating the black void. The tunnel was narrow, claustrophobic, and lined with the same cryptic symbols. Elena's pulse quickened. "These markings, they're consistent with every incident we've documented. Whoever did this uses the symbols to guide their victims, control the flow of fear." At the end of the tunnel, the floor opened into a vast underground chamber larger than anything Elena expected. The walls were covered in murals depicting terrified townspeople in abstract, contorted forms. Candles flickered, though no logical source of electricity or wind could explain it. In the center of the room stood a massive stone pedestal surrounded by ritual implements, vials of unknown liquids, and a series of tattered books bound in leather. And there, at the far end of the chamber, a figure emerged from the shadows. Tall, cloaked, and motionless, the perpetrator's presence radiated menace. Elena recognized the face instantly. It was someone the town trusted, someone whose public persona masked a lifetime of obsession and cruelty. It was the town historian, Elias Wren, a man who had spent decades chronicling Hallow Ridge's past and quietly orchestrating the present horrors. Elias's voice was low and chilling. "Detective Pierce, I wondered how long it would take before someone discovered the truth." His eyes glinted in the candlelight. "You see, fear is not chaos. Fear is order, and Hallow Ridge has always been mine to study." Elena stepped forward, her hand steady on her weapon. "You've terrorized this town for decades. Disappearances, screams. Why?" "Why?" Elias's laugh was soft, almost reverent. "Because only through fear can humanity be truly understood. Every scream, every gasp, every heartbeat racing in panic, it's a symphony, and I conduct it." Mason's voice shook as he whispered, He's been doing this for years, timing every incident with precision, using the rituals to control people." Elena's eyes swept across the room. "The symbols, the patterns, it's all a map of the town. You've been orchestrating terror like a puppet master." Elias stepped closer, extending a hand toward the pedestal. "You've seen fragments of my work, but not the whole picture. Tonight, the final ritual is meant to complete the collection. Hallow Ridge will scream, and the power will be absolute. No one escapes, no one resists, and I will remain untouchable." Mason's face turned pale. We have to stop him, now." Elena nodded, formulating a plan in seconds. "Malik, block the exit. Mason, help me with the pedestal. We need to destroy the focus of his ritual. If we disrupt it, we break his control of the town." The confrontation was sudden and chaotic. Elias moved with unnerving speed, almost inhuman, blocking their approach. Candles toppled, sending small fires across the floor. The murals seemed to twist in the flickering light, their grotesque forms amplifying the terror of the moment. Elena realized that the fear wasn't just symbolic. Elias had somehow infused the room with a psychological force, a pulse that made the chamber itself oppressive. Mason grabbed a vial from the pedestal, smashing it against the stone floor. Smoke and a pungent odor arose instantly. Elias recoiled, and Elena seized the opportunity, kicking over the pedestal and scattering the ritual implements. Sparks erupted as candles fell, extinguishing the ritual's focal points one by one. Elias's scream was not of fear, but of fury. "You think this ends here? The fear cannot be undone." Elena pressed forward, keeping her weapon trained on him. "It can be disrupted, and it will be." She signaled Malik, who tackled Elias toward the rear of the chamber. A violent struggle ensued, and Elias's cloak was torn, revealing a series of arcane tattoos running along his arms and neck, symbols identical to those plastered across the town. He had made himself a living conduit of his ritual. Mason shouted, "The symbols! Destroy the markings! It's how he channels the energy!" They grabbed cleaning tools and began erasing the symbols, smashing chalk and smearing out traces of blood. Slowly, the oppressive weight in the chamber lifted, and the eerie hum that had haunted Elena since entering began to fade. Elias fell to his knees, powerless for the first time in decades. "No, it can't end like this," he whispered. But the room had grown quiet. The ritual was broken, the psychic pulse dissipating into the void. Elena stepped back, catching her breath. "It's over, for now." Mason looked around, shaken but relieved. "Do you think he'll try again?" Elena's gaze hardened. People like him never truly disappear, but for tonight, the town is safe. The screams will not return, not while we're vigilant. They emerged from the mansion just as dawn broke, the first golden light spilling across Hallow Ridge. The streets were still empty, but the oppressive weight had lifted slightly. The town remained scarred, shaken to its core, but the threat had been confronted. And yet, as Elena surveyed the horizon, she couldn't shake the feeling that the darkness they had disrupted was only a part of something larger, a force that had been building quietly, patiently over decades. Hallow Ridge might be safe now, but the echoes of fear would linger, and somewhere in the shadows, Elias Wren's obsession with terror remained unbroken.